For many Minnesota State Fair attendees, a day is not complete without indulging themselves with sweets on a stick, taking a sky ride, checking out stage shows, and shopping in the grandstand. In the education building, politics is also a must-do for many fairgoers. In addition to learning about the legislature and interacting with members at the Minnesota House of Representatives booth, visitors of all ages voice their opinions through the House's annual State Fair Opinion Poll. This year's 13-question survey was an opportunity for visitors to weigh in on issues of the day and those that could be discussed during the 2012 legislative session. More than 11,000 people took the poll, a new record. Among the issues addressed was the definition of marriage, requiring a photo identification to vote, publicly funded preschool, gambling dollars, and of course, the state budget. Let's take a look at the issues, some fairgoers' comments, and results. The longest shutdown in Minnesota history was still fresh in the minds of many fairgoers, and they shared their opinions on proposals to avoid that in the future. A provision could have potentially been used during the end of the regular session and the start of the special session for the legislature to pass a so-called lights-on bill. Proponents say a lights-on bill would keep state government fully functional and avoid a state government shutdown if the legislature and governor cannot agree on budget bills, while critics say this is a backstop in case legislators and the governor cannot work out a deal. Barring a lights-on scenario, bills have been introduced that would have allowed the legislature to call itself into special session under specified conditions and limits. Supporters say the change could reduce the gridlock when governing bodies cannot agree because the governor cannot use a special session as a bargaining chip. Opponents express concern that the authority would give the legislature less incentive to be done on time. Gambling is one of many revenue raisers proposed to help balance the state budget. Proponents have noted that the expansion of gambling is a possible way to raise revenue in a more voluntary way than traditional tax increases. Opponents argue the state should not rely on an expansion of gambling to pay for state services, and American Indian tribes have long opposed any form of expansion of state gaming. Increasing the income tax on the wealthiest Minnesotans was an idea repeatedly offered by DFLers during the state budget debate earlier this year. While some fairgoers spoke for and against the idea, the issue of taxes as a whole was something that elicited opinions from many people taking the poll. Minnesota is just one of 5 states that does not tax clothing. A 2009 news report said that extending the state's 6.5% sales tax to clothing would bring in about $400 million a year. However, retailers, especially those that get lots of business from non-Minnesotans, clearly don't like the idea of anything that will make clothing less affordable. Also in the area of taxation, cities must now get legislative approval as one condition to increase or impose a local option sales tax. Some say it should be a local decision and the legislature should stay out of it. Others, however, think it increases disparities among communities and shouldn't be allowed at all. Governor Mark Dayton nixed a plan to require all Minnesotans to present a valid photo identification card before voting, calling it costly and unnecessary. The issue of whether to require voters to show a photo ID has long been a top priority for Republicans, who say doing so would prevent illegal voting and boost public confidence in the integrity of elections. Most DFL lawmakers oppose the idea, arguing that requiring a valid photo ID for voting would present a hardship for senior citizens, college students, persons with disabilities, and certain other groups. Nearly 7 in 10 poll takers who answered a similar question in 2010 said a photo ID should be required to vote. In 2008, the yes percentage was 67%. Late in the 2011 session, legislation was passed to put a proposed constitutional amendment on the November 2012 ballot asking voters whether to define marriage as only a union of one man and one woman. This question may have garnered the most vocal comments at the booth, with opponents stating government should stay out of their personal lives, while supporters said the change would preserve the institution of marriage. We can all look forward to the barrage of ads for and against the amendment prior to the 2012 election. We've all seen drivers do something erratic on the road, and once we get alongside them, we see they're talking on a cell phone. A ban on texting while driving became law in 2008, and there have been proposals to ban almost all cell phone use while driving. Proponents note that distracted driving is one of the leading causes of traffic incidents, especially among young drivers, while opponents have countered they should have freedom of choice while behind the wheel. High-quality early childhood education is widely considered to be a good public investment. Our poll included 2 education-related issues, one of which dealt with preschool funding and if publicly funded preschools should be available to all children. And poll takers shared their opinion on compulsory attendance. Representative Carlos Mariani introduced a bill that would increase the compulsory school attendance age from 16 to 18, or until a student graduates, whichever comes first. Supporters said that high school graduates earn more, are likelier to avoid jail, and stay healthier than dropouts. It's also argued that allowing students to drop out at 16 sends the wrong message about the value of education. In the land of 10,000 lakes, people can fish with 2 lines through the ice in the winter, but not on open water during the warmer months. They also can fish with 2 lines on public waters along bordering states. The provision continues to draw opposition from Department of Natural Resources officials, who say allowing people to fish with 2 lines all the time would increase harvesting of fish and the mortality rate from those being caught and released. Supporters say potential revenue from the purchase of a 2-line stamp could number in the millions. Right-to-work laws guarantee workers' ability to take a job without having to join a union or pay any kind of union dues or fees. Right-to-work legislation is favored by many conservatives who say no worker should be compelled to join a labor union against their will. 22 states currently have right-to-work laws. Opponents of right-to-work laws often see them as purely a union-busting tactic and argue that such laws lead to reduced wages, benefits, and safety standards for all workers. Finally, we asked poll takers at the House of Representatives booth if they knew who their state representative is. It is the most common question we receive at the House, and a great way for staff and members to interact with poll takers. Again, we'd like to thank the record number of poll takers and encourage people to contact their representatives with any issues. The 2012 session is scheduled to begin on January 24th. Will any or all of these issues be addressed at that time? We'll see. But one thing is for sure, Minnesotans are not afraid to offer opinions, and that's a good thing.